Hello, world. First of all, I'd like to preface this video with the fact that all glory and honor to God and to the the Lamb that He did provide, His Son Jesus Christ. So today, I'm going to tell you about three angel encounters. Um, Most of them happened years ago, so I'll start with them kind of in the order that they happened. Um, the first one, years ago, my wife and I were driving, and I had a truck, and this person cut me off, and I got mad, and I cussed under my breath, and I didn't flip him off or anything. I don't even think I had time to honk. And so anyway, my wife says, "You shouldn't talk like that." And I whispered it. They didn't even hear me. And she says, "Would you talk like that if Jesus was in the truck?" And I was like, "You're right. I shouldn't have talked like that." So that night, as I was going to sleep, I was praying, and I was asking God to forgive me for cussing. I mean, I'm not that holy. Most of us, a lot of us lose our temper when we're driving, but I just felt that, this is the mouth that we pray to God with. We should try to keep it clean. So anyway, I went to bed, and right before I went to sleep, I asked God to forgive me for cussing, and I fell asleep, and I had a vision. And in this vision, I was looking over this angel's shoulder. Like the angel was in front of me, and then I was off to the right, and I was kind of looking down over his shoulder, and there was a book that was opened. And to the right of the book, there was a red ink in a bottle. Looked like an inkwell, like the black ink in those old fashioned inkwells that you dipped a pen in, and so, but it was red ink, and I thought that was kind of weird. And so, as I looked over his shoulder, I could see words on the pages, but I couldn't read them. I don't think it was meant to read them. That was not what this was about. So as this is going on, a voice from above said, "The angels record everything you do." And so then anyway, the angel dipped his right finger in the red liquid, and then on the left page, he rubbed the red liquid over the sentences or words, and they became white as snow. And then I was like, I was made aware that that's the blood of the Lamb erasing sins. I thought that was totally amazing. That was really just really cool. So Jesus did say, "Verily I say unto you that you will give an accounting for every idle word that comes out of your mouth." So I guess it's more than that. Um, I've always tried to be a good person, but after having that experience, I'm like, oh man, I need to really try as hard as possible to follow God and His commands, not out of fear of punishment, but out of love for God. And so anyway, that was the first encounter. The second one, my wife worked at a job, and I'd been at my job like 15 years, so I had like 3 weeks, 4 weeks vacation. And so this one week that I had off, I think it was around the holidays that she had to work, I made her breakfast, got her ready for work, and then anyway, I decided to go back to sleep. And before I went to sleep, I said, God, I wanna be with you in heaven today, and I meant in spirit, right before I went to sleep. And so anyway, I went to sleep, and I have to preface this. At this point in my life, I was much closer to God. We went to a church that was like 5 hours long, and I was praying and studying the Bible like many hours a week. And so I believe when we do that, when we draw closer to God, He draws closer to us, and we're allowed to have more experiences by drawing closer to Him. And the world's so crazy right now; it's a lot of people falling away from God and faith and just sanity. But anyway, so before I went back to sleep that day, I said, God, I want to be with you in heaven. And so the next thing I remember after falling asleep was I was walking. Well, it's not walking. When you're in spirit, you kind of like glide. It's hard to explain, but I was beside an angel, and I think it was my guardian angel because I recognized he's like black wavy hair. I don't know what his face looks like, but I'd seen him before in a dream, and he was like 10 feet tall, and he said something to me, and there's a verse in the Bible, but he had said something like, there are those who lead certain number, 50, 20, or 100, but he had said, you look like one to lead 100. Well, it ended up being prophetic, and I'm not going to go into that, but it was wild. But this was the same angel in this occurrence that I remember in that dream. So anyway, it was weird as I was beside him, and we were in a city. It was all white. The streets were white. The buildings were white. Everything was like really, really clean. And I was moving beside him. He was on my left side. And the thing that kind of freaked me out is when I remember seeing him the first time, he seemed like he was 10 feet tall. And as I was having this experience, I was looking at him like shoulder to shoulder, or we were like shoulder to shoulder. And I never realized that we don't know how big our souls are, which is kind of weird. I would have never even thought about this until that happened. But I was as tall as he was here in this place. So anyways, we're moving along the main street. He pointed to the right, and there was a door in this building. So I moved into the door, and in front of the door, or past the door, as he moved into the room, there was a long table. On the left side of the table, there seemed to be like an opening between the wall and the table. And so I went to move to the left side of the wall around the table, and then kind of in front of the table to the center. And this force, it was very gentle, but this force, it grabbed a hold of my essence, and it moved me back around the side of the table and to the front of the table and to the right. And it deposited me on the right side of the table, and a voice from above said, "This is your place." And I looked down on the table, and there's like a chalice. It was like a cup. And there's an interesting study if you do a Bible study on cups and chalices throughout the entirety of the Bible. But anyway, so after being placed there, I looked in front of me, and there was these gold lights, and I believe there was 3 of them. There may have been more, but there's 3 that I remember. And so it was almost like looking into the sun, these 3 golden lights. And so the one that was like right in front of me, I really concentrated. I really had to focus on looking into the center of the light. And I saw an angel, and I actually saw his face. And you had to really look through the aura to get to the center. And this angel was so perfect looking. And he had like gold and copper ringlets, short hair, and the perfect complexion. And he had these piercing brown eyes. And he looked so angry at me. And it just totally freaked me out because I always thought angels would be more friendly. But I realized then that they have free will just like we do. And they're not perfect. And they have feelings. And the look that he had, it was almost like, what is he doing here? Or why is he here? What is he doing? And he made me feel so dirty because they're so perfect. And they look so, I mean, I'm not saying they're perfect, but there are no blemishes, and it was just how perfect they look is just, it's amazing. So anyway, when he glared at me with that look in his eyes, he made me feel dirty, and I looked down, and I felt like a shame, and I felt dirty, and as I looked down, this voice from above said, "You have every right to be here, as much as they, for you share in common with them the love of God." And so that made me feel better. And so then I looked back up, and from the right, this piece of burning meat came into the room, and there was a huge celebration, and something went up and something went down, and then I was taken out of there in the instant of a second, in a twinkling of an eye. I was taken out of there. And anyway, that was kind of amazing, and it was eye-opening to realize about that angels have choices and free will just like we do. And I thought differently of them before that incident. So anyway, that was the second encounter I want to talk about. The third one was very interesting, very disturbing. I worked at this job, and at this point I had been there 10 years, and I had this really slimy boss, and he had done things that he shouldn't have, and I brought that to higher ups' attention because it involved theft of company property and company dollars and this and that. So anyway, he'd been trying to fire me for quite a while, and my wife worked at this company, and it was going through a hostile takeover, and so my boss, he professes to be a Christian, but for years he was trying to fire me, and right during this process where my wife is going to lose her job, he was really pushing hard to fire me and sabotaging things, and I was so angry when this whole process was going through. I was just enraged. I'm like, how dare you do this to me? You know, my wife's gonna lose her job, and we have a big house payment, and so anyway, because of this anger that I had, I could not sleep. My blood pressure was like 177, and normally it's at 110 to 115, and I just couldn't sleep. I had so much anger. I just kept thinking about it, and at night I couldn't sleep. So I went to the store and I got sleeping pills, and they would work for like 2 hours, and then I would have that horrible anxiety and just anger about what he was doing. And so anyway, I went to the little clinic at King Soopers, and I told the doctor or nursing assistant, whatever she was, I was explaining the situation. I said, I'd like something to help me sleep. So she wrote a prescription. I went to the pharmacy, and I got the prescription, and I took it, and excuse me, for like a week. It was wonderful. I slept so good, and it really worked. And so one of my coworkers at the store said, "Hey Joe, can you tell me, do you have the bottle that you're taking?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I showed her the bottle, and she said, "This is a lesser form of Valium." And I was so mad because I didn't want Valium. I just wanted something to help me sleep, but it did help me sleep. And my wife loved it for a week. She kept telling all of her friends, "Hey, for a week, my husband didn't tell me how to drive," which I think is funny. And it was a Friday, I think, of that week that I was taking it, and I called my wife's father, my father-in-law, who was in, he used to be kind of in management at the phone company, and I was telling him about all the stuff that was going on at my job, and asking for his advice, and so he said, "You've told me the same story about what had happened during the week." He said, "You told me 3 times this week. I had no clue that I'd ever even told him once." And so I told myself, I got to get off the Valium. I need to be focused. I need to be sharp with what's going on at work. I can't be this spacey. I didn't even remember telling him the story. So anyway, I stopped taking the Valium, and then after a couple days, I was right back to not being able to sleep, and my job was very physical. I had like 110 stores I was responsible for, and so anyway, I don't know, maybe a few more days went by, and I think it was the weekend coming up, and I went to sleep, and before I did, I prayed. I said, "God, I beseech thee," I said, "please restore my peace. I got to rest. I need my rest for my job and this that's going on." And so anyway, that night I had a dream, and I had an older house when I was younger, and so the dream took place kind of at that house, and but it was a little different. So anyway, when I walked into my old house, my wife was there, my younger brother, who's huge, he's like 6'3", he's a moose. We were all sitting at the dining table, and all the walls were white, which in real life they weren't white. So I think when you have a dream of a house, it's symbolic of you and your temple, and the fact that the inside of the house is white, which is a good sign, because I do try to do the right thing all the time, and I try to follow God's commands. I do stumble, we all do, but I try to give my best in how I love God and other people. And so anyway, we were sitting in the dining table, and this black shadow came into. It was like a black shadow human form. It came into the house uninvited, and so I stood up. I grabbed my wife, and I started to run through the living room to there's a back door running past the living room to the hallway to the back rooms of the house. And my brother Dave says, "Hey, Joe, you can't fight this. I'll fight this. I'll buy you some time." And so, as I'm getting ready to go out the door, I yell back to my brother in the dining area. I says, "I'll go get my gun." And so, right when I said that, a voice from above said, "A gun will not help you with this." And so then it woke me up spiritually that this was a spiritual attack. This whole time I had no clue that it was a spiritual attack. So realizing that a gun wouldn't fix this, I realized it was spiritual, of a spiritual nature. So I walked back to the dining area where my brother was with this black shadow type form. And as I'm walking towards this black shadow form, I stuck my right hand up and I started speaking Hebrew. And the only word I consciously recognized was Abba, which is Father. And so I asked in my mind, I said, God, what am I saying? Translate, please translate. So I said in Hebrew, as I touched this black shadow thing, I said, remember who your father was. And as I touched this fallen angel saying this, I did like a mind melt, kind of like when Spock, he'd touch it and he could experience the thing. So when I touched it with my right hand and I said that in Hebrew, remember who your father was, I got to see this fallen angel's memories. And he looked back through the ethers of time, back when he stood in God's grace, and he was one of God's children. Because by saying "remember who your father was," he's no longer one of God's children. He's cast out, and it was such a profound sorrow. I almost couldn't bear the sorrow that this fallen angel had felt when he remembered what he had lost when he was with God. And then after that, the black shadow form, it fell towards the ground. And the next day I woke up and my peace was restored. My blood pressure was back to normal. And the thing that we forget, I think, sometimes is that God's word warns us about that we are attacked by things unseen, and it can have physical ramifications in your life. And so I'm not saying that's all things, because there is disease and stuff, but I mean, I would have never suspected in 100 years that my whole blood pressure thing was because I allowed something negative into my system because of how angry I was at what my boss was doing to me. I should have trusted in God and waited, because that slimy boss ended up sabotaging me, but he left a paper trail, and he did it all under my name when I was on vacation. And when I came back, I caught him and sent everything to corporate, and it almost got him fired. But at least he stopped trying to fire me, and I stayed there another 5 or 6 years. But anyway, I just wanted to tell you about those three angel encounters, and that we need to pray and be vigilant and have the armor of God on at all times. And God's word is true when He talks about things unseen being attacking us. And anyway. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.